Sì, volevo chiederle se lei è stato, è un ammiratore dei film di James Bond, e in particolare di quali, non so, di quelli con classici, primi con Sean Connery, oppure Roger Moore, Pierce Brosnan, e se in qualche modo ha pensato in particolare a qualcuno di questi. Grazie.
Yes, I always felt that the first Johnny English was quite like a Roger Moore James Bond movie, with more jokes. There's something about the character of Roger Moore as James Bond which is a little bit like Johnny English. You know, that's, you know, that raised eyebrow and the smugness and the, you know, the sort of, you know, louche kind of British gentleman on the loose, which I think there are. I think Johnny English has probably fashioned himself slightly on Roger Moore as James Bond. My personal likes are probably, you identify correctly, are probably somewhere between Sean Connery and Pierce Brosnan. Although Daniel Craig has been very good, I think, in redefining the James Bond genre. I didn't see Quantum of Solace, so I don't know what that is like, but I enjoyed Casino Royale very much, which, well, it was a little bit of a return to almost the early Sean Connery movies in terms of its tone and style, and that was very good. But I mean, James Bond is an inspiration. It's bound to have been an inspiration for me and for us, because I think every boy wants to be in the world of James Bond. Every man would like to be James Bond. You know, that is the nature of James Bond. And I think what's funny about Johnny English really is that you feel he's a fan. You know, you can sense his sort of slightly amateur, sort of boyish enthusiasm for the world that he inhabits. And of course, it's the fact that he's not a natural, as I said earlier, which means that he's not wholly qualified to fulfill the role he fulfills, but that is part of his joke.
Abbiamo una collega che ci porta una serie di domande. Prego.
Lei ha sempre interpretato la parte del buono, mi piacerebbe anche interpretare un criminale o la parte comunque di un cattivo in generale?
Well, traditionally there is a good market in Hollywood for British actors as bad guys. So I suppose, you know, there's always the possibility. I think I may have spoiled my pitch somewhat by playing Mr. Bean, because I think the very nature of Mr. Bean as, you know, as a silly sort of childish character, sometimes I think will always make it difficult for film producers or directors to cast me in films of a more serious tone, because as you know, as an actor I bring a lot of baggage with me, mainly, you know, Mr. Bean baggage. And that's absolutely fine, and you know, I've got used to that idea. But I'd be happy, and I mean, in fact, funny enough, an early draft of this new Johnny English movie had me playing my own cousin as the villain. So there was Johnny English, and there was Johnny English's cousin was a bad guy, and I was going to play both roles, which I thought was quite a funny idea actually. But I'm someone who is reluctant. Unlike Mike Myers, for example, who knows the speciality of it, unlike Mike Myers, I always feel very nervous about playing two roles in one movie. It's technically difficult, and I feel as though sometimes all your, you know, in terms of presenting, you know, which again was our aim, a serious story, a believable story. I think when one actor is starting to play two roles, what you're looking for is, when you're watching it as a spectator, is how they cheated it, you know, how technically they've got this to work. You know, you're looking for this, for the dividing line down the middle of the screen where the two bits of the shot have been put together in order to present two characters played by one actor at the same time. So I've never fancied it as a sort of, you know, films as show reels, really, you know, trying to show how versatile you are, but I've never felt the need for that.
Abbiamo due domande lì, prima Roberto Leofrigio. Io mi permetto di ricordare anche che però Mr. Atkinson credo che in Blackadder abbia dato la prova delle più grandi cattiverie che io ho visto sullo schermo, quindi per me lui è un eroe solo a pensare come trattava il povero, i suoi poveri interlocutori in alcune situazioni.
I think I could be very bad. You're right. I think I could be very bad.
Allora, vado io. Allora, la mia è una personale curiosità, cioè come si è trovato a scorazzare con una carrozzella a 40-50 all'ora, visto che l'ha fatto in prima persona nonostante le perplessità della produzione. E poi sempre sapere se ha provato personalmente la Rolls Royce modificata magari su un circuito, visto che lei è un appassionato di auto.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This is clearly the car question. It's a good question because, as you know, I'm a great lover of motor cars and motor racing. Firstly, with the Rolls Royce, I was very keen to have a different kind of sort of glamorous English spy vehicle. I felt that Aston Martin, even though we'd used it in the first movie, and of course it's in all the James Bond movies, Aston Martins, I felt that it's been a little bit overused, become a little bit of a cliche, and I fancied doing something a bit different. I'd had some very good experiences personally with the Rolls-Royce Phantom, so, and I also knew one very important piece of information, which was that Rolls-Royce had developed this ridiculous engine, a 9-litre V16 engine, a 16-cylinder engine for the Rolls-Royce Phantom, but had chosen never to use it. But I knew that this engine was sitting in a warehouse in Munich somewhere, and I asked Rolls-Royce if they would, because, you know, it's always nice with a spy car to have something special, a USP in there, and I asked if they'd get this 9-litre V16 engine out of storage and put it in our Johnny English Phantom, our two-door Phantom. And very sweetly Rolls-Royce agreed, and like me, they wanted it to be a real car that really worked. So it is a real car that really works. I've taken it to a couple of premieres actually earlier this week. I haven't got it here today, sadly, but it is a real car and it does work. And you know, and I think it's a good-looking car in the film. Actually, I think it's a very suitable car. Perhaps it's slightly reflecting Johnny English's new maturity. You know, a slightly softer, slightly more older image. The second thing about wheelchair, yeah, the other thing was that, you know, you feel as though you've always got to have a car chase in a spy movie, and I like the idea of a car chase with a difference, so we came up with the idea of one of the cars being a wheelchair, but a special high-powered wheelchair that had been developed by the British Secret Service. And it was a great toy. It was an amazing thing. We had 3 different ones for different speeds, 2 electric and 1 powered by a go-kart engine, which was the fastest one, which I drove on the Mall in front of Buckingham Palace there, and it did go 35 or 40 miles an hour, 60 kilometers per hour. And 60 kilometers per hour, you know, may not sound fast, but in a wheelchair, I can promise you, it's very, very fast indeed. Because the centre of gravity of a wheelchair is extremely high, and the likelihood of you tipping over is extremely high. And even though I'm not every single shot in the sequence is me, but all the high-speed stuff, as it happens, is me. The stuff when the chair is going at its fastest, and it was good fun.
Prego. Si può anche presentare?
Simone Vaio, Gothic Network. Io, da quello che ho percepito dal sottotitolo La Rinascita, volevo sapere appunto se il film, visto che l'ho percepito come un episodio a sé stante rispetto al precedente, volevo sapere appunto se si trattava semplicemente, come poi ha detto Mr. Atkinson, di un'evoluzione, di raccontare l'evoluzione del personaggio o di un sequel effettivo, e visto che lei ogni volta studia a fondo i suoi personaggi, appunto si è mantenuto qualcosa del vecchio Johnny English oppure l'ha rimodellato completamente, insomma. Grazie.
I think there's plenty about the old Johnny English in the new Johnny English. I hope, as you say, he's an evolution rather than a revolution. You know, the essential joke of Johnny English is still there. The fact that he's not as good as he thinks he is. You know, the fact that he overreaches himself. The fact that his ambition is greater than his skill. You know, Johnny English thinks he's this good, when in fact he's only this good. And it's in that gap between the two which is where our jokes lie. But we've just in this new movie just tried to challenge him more as a character, given him more light and shade, given him more serious scenes. Actually, you know, there's a sort of gravitas to Johnny English sometimes in the new movie, which I think is enjoyable. And as I say, just feeds this whole idea of making our narrative more believable and more enjoyable. I hope, yeah, I don't think he's radically different. And of course also actually giving him, showing the courage of him has been very important, because even though he's a little bit of a fool, he's not a total fool. You know, he's actually quite good at being a secret agent. And he's surprisingly brave, surprisingly determined. So, you know, he won't stop until the job is done. You know, he's definitely not a coward. And that, I think, is quite endearing. I think the character endears himself to the audience more in the new movie than in the old one. And this is simply by virtue of what we get him to do and the situations in which we've decided to place him. So I think he is